Okay, here we are, chapter 18. Um, change. Managing change. This is a funny little cartoon that I'm sure many of you have seen. Who wants change? Everyone wants change. Who wants to change? No one. Because change is hard. Change is inevitable. Here we go. Here's another one. I don't want to change. I want all of you to change. Good idea, huh? Okay, so conflict is inevitable, so is change. There is planned change that there's some sort of deliberate decision, so that we're going to launch a new product, we're going to get a new plant. Unplanned change is something that, is that you don't expect. The fall of a competitor, the some sort of financial crisis. It could be um, uh, a fire. It could be a change of a hasty exit of a CEO. Something unplanned change, things you don't expect. So things that contribute to change. I think we've talked about all of this quite a bit before. Globalization is changing the workplace. Technology is changing of diversity, changing increasingly diverse workplace, and uh, increased expectations for ethical behavior and transparency in organizations. So internally, so those are the external forces. Internal is, declining effectiveness if you're not, producing as much or you're not as competitive as you used to be, some kind of crisis. Um, Changes in expectations in terms of what people want from you, what managers want from you. Maybe the company is going in a new direction. Changes in the work climate. Um, Maybe layoffs or maybe a whole total or an influx, a great influx of people, that kind of thing. Okay, so change comes at different times and different periods. There's incremental change, which is very small, that making small improvements over a long period of time. You know, um, slowly adding more people to the workforce, or slowly phasing out over maybe a 3 or 4 year period of product or a department. Strategic change is change when you're trying to actually get uh, organizational restructuring, or you're changing a direction. And then transformational change is something that's all of a sudden very radical. Um, that you cease operations on one area and then you started on another one. It's very dramatic. Okay, so often companies will employ change agents, people who come in that introduce and manage the change in an organization. It could be internal and external. There are pros and cons for each. Internally, that people understand the culture and the strengths and weaknesses of the organization, and people can tend to oftentimes the internally you can have a plus that people trust those people, or it can be a problem that people don't feel that people are too familiar, and it's hard to, it's kind of that whole buddy to boss thing that um, it's difficult for people to take their coworker as seriously as they might take someone externally. Externally there's trust factors, but there's also that people can face, external change agents can face a- objections, roadblocks to people trusting them. It can also be that but people see them as experts, and so they really, heed what they say. Okay, so why are people resistant to change? It's just a list. People don't like the unknown. People are gonna they feel that there's some sort of loss. They feel that there's some sort of mourning period. People feel that they're not going to do well. They're going to fail. They don't feel comfortable in their skills and abilities to adapt. Interpersonal relationships. I always had lunch with these guys for the past 12 years, and now they're going to be in a different building. And who am I going to talk to? And who are my friends going to be? And I was in this department and I understood it, and I know my boss, and now I have a new boss. That kind of thing. Personality conflicts, of course, are going to happen. You have to work with new people. Uh, Politics, of course, good old politics. People, vying for their own interests and not necessarily looking for the interests of everybody. And then also back to cultural issues. We talked about those three levels of culture, and one of them was the assumptions and the espouse actual values and espoused values, and then cultural assumptions that maybe it's always been an innovative company, and now they're trying to be, they're not being innovative enough, or whatever it may be, or just the opposite, that they're being too innovative. Okay, so there are some um, uh, tricks you can use, and these are some of the things we talked about, particularly in the team section, and also the decision making section. Um, Making sure that you communicate why changes are occurring and you clearly articulate what the rationale was for it. Help people to encourage people to participate in the change and some of the decisions so that they feel some ownership to it and they're more committed to some of the decisions that have been made. That people, if they're actually involved in what's going on, they understand it, they feel more involved, they feel more um, uh, akin to it than they do if they're just being told what to do. And then it's always important that managers have some level of empathy and support, that they understand that it's difficult for people, understand what people are going through. Think about things in terms of how your employees would be, how your employees feel. Try to see something through someone else's eyes and be supportive and help people deal with it. Okay, so there is this whole theory of uh, 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 changing, the change model. Unfreezing essentially is getting rid of all the old behaviors and getting rid of all of the things that were happening. And then you move and you introduce new ideas and new values and substitute them for the old ones. And then refreezing is that you institute those. So institute those new methods. So one way you do that, you get the performance that you reward. So make sure that you're no longer, if there's the old paradigm, no longer rewarding things from the old paradigm, you start to reward things from the new paradigm. Maybe, you're trying to encourage teamwork more, or you're trying to encourage cross-functional groups more, that kind of thing. That those people, that those people who are participating in those activities are rewarded for it. So there's a whole field, a growing field, which is born out of organizational development, organizational behavior, and that is organizational development, and that is systematically going through and changing what's going on. Um, it is a whole behavioral science and also a growing field, and making sure that the organizational well-being and also and individual and organizational well-being is looked at. That's the idea of organizational development. So there are different ways to measure what's going on in the organization. Um, and for intervention, survey feedback, getting information from people, the whole idea of 365-degree feedback. We've talked about some of these things before. Management by objectives, setting up objectives and making sure that that people are rewarded for reaching their objectives and that kind of thing. Making sure that there's some sort of quality system in place. Team building exercises and team building, making sure people can work together. And then throughout the process, having some kind of consultation with people and make sure that they understand what's going on. Okay, and then there's individual techniques for organizational development, skills training, teaching people if there's a new skill that they need to understand or a new technique, and then also leadership training. So for all training at all levels, executive, management, and frontline, that there's some sort of training that you assist people in getting these new skills. Role negotiation, sometimes people's jobs need to be changed a little bit, and job redesign, actually changing the jobs themselves. Always making sure that you have health and promotion programs, that we talked about that in the stress chapter. And then finally, assisting people with career planning. Maybe some people aren't interested in staying with the organization, so helping them find new employment or helping them find a place that fits them better within the organization itself, so that they can, fulfill their goals and reach that highest level of Maslow's need hierarchy in terms of self-actualization. So that's change in a nutshell. It is something that is inevitable. As I said, conflict is inevitable. Change is inevitable too, particularly, nowadays in the workplace, it happens more and more often. Things are because of globalization and diversity and technology and all kind of things, all those kinds of things. Things really are, at a very fast clip. So that's it for the class, guys. I hope that you learned some things. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that I always enjoy this class, and it's all subject areas that I'm very interested in, and I hope that I've conveyed that to you, and I hope that that you will continue to think about organizational behavior, and that you've learned some things that will help you manage yourself and help you manage others in the workplace, and most of all, help you to understand why things happen the way they do at work. Okay, thanks everyone, and please let me know if I can help you with anything.